Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming, and this is from the Depths Designer for another session of building stuff. And in this episode I'm going to be building something for the campaign, following the theme that I have for the campaign, but also looking at a new sort of area for the vehicle design. And in this design, what I want to look at is lighter than air airships. Now, although there is the ships such as the Falkenheim in the game for the deep water guard, it's not really a lighter than airship. It's a helicopter. It's just most of those planes, or I say planes, most of them are helicopters. They're not actually lighter than airships as such. Most of their lift comes from an upward facing dedicated or spinner, helicopter blade inside that gives them the upward thrust, which is fine, because they're rather large and have to hold quite a bit of weaponry, etc. But what I would like to do, for a couple of reasons, is first, against a deep water guard is mostly about the only opponent where an airship has even got the slightest chance of surviving out in the in the campaign when there's enemy going to be attacking. Most of the others there would wipe it out. So it's the only one. It also fits in that the first Zeppelin, which we will look down by Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, was, he started thinking about them in the 1870s. I think in the 1880s he actually patented the designs for the rigid airship. After he had seen, originally in the 1860s, he was in the American Civil War and he saw the balloons and the way they were used over there, and that gave him ideas, but he didn't actually get some money together to make one until the it was the 1890s. I think 1899, 1898 was the first Zeppelins were at least started to be built. So it was quite a while, but they actually carried on flying. Not the same ones, obviously, but designs. Zeppelin itself, the last ones, the Hindenburg 2 was in 1938. So they did have a good history of flight. Obviously there was problems with the Hindenburgs, and they had a fiery end, which is one of the problems that the Germans had, which could have been solved if the Americans had allowed them to use helium instead of hydrogen, but we can't, that wasn't the case. Anyway, from the depths we have to make the helium balloons using the helium pump, and we have to have a sealed area to contain the for want of a better word, the same as having a helium bag, but we can't create a bag. So like an air pump, the helium pump will fill it with helium, which is lighter than air, and force that sort of void to give an upward force. Now, one of the keys, or the most important factor in theory with any airship, is weight. The more weight, the more downward force. So looking at the blocks we have available, I've sort of put them in order of what I think is suitable here. So if we go to blocks, we can see metal. You wouldn't want to, you can't, rubber's the only one I haven't really looked at. Where are we, rubber? Weight 20, where does that sit in the zone? It's actually a bit heavy. Rubber's a bit heavy, but starting with metal, I think, because heavy armour I don't think would even go upwards, but I think that would be the heaviest you could go with, and that's a weight of 40. No, it's not a weight of 40. Let's bring that back up again. Let me look at the weight. Yeah, the weight of 40. Material cost 5 per block. Now you can reduce that with angles, and we'll go through that separately. But it's also the best armour. It's an armour of 40, so that could be a valid choice. Now also wood. So wood, I think, would be the next one. Now the advantage of wood is weight 10, quarter of the weight of metal, but it has a lot less armour, of course, only an 8 armour, but it's very cheap that cost is only one material cost, which is very good actually. Now the next one I was looking at is actually glass, because in From the Depths, glass isn't really glass, it's clear aluminium, it's armoured glass. So weight of 10, so that's the same as the wooden block, but it's got a lot more armour. The health isn't as much, but that armour is 25, which means it's going to bounce a few shots, etc. before, or at least some of the smaller weapons will have a problem destroying it, etc. Material cost is 3, so it is a lot higher material cost than wood, but it again is a potential candidate that gives you some armour without the weight. I reinforced decking. The reason I haven't chosen reinforced decking is you don't have many shapes, which we'll get into in a bit. You've only got blocks, which makes it not as useful. The other one I didn't really look at, again because of shapes, is applique panels. They could be used on the sides, to be honest, but because there's no angles, the shape's going to be very boxy, which I don't think will be very good, so that's the reason I haven't included them. Next, the obvious choice initially is lightweight alloy. Good armour, good weight at 5, so you know it's half the weight of wood and glass, and an eighth of metal. Expensive, same cost as metal, but it's you know, it's a good all-round structural block that could be used for building, so that's an obvious one. Now actually, next one I looked at was actually the metal plates. So this is, now we've got those, because we have got angles with them, they are quite good. Now weight wise, that weight of 4 puts them better than the light alloy, even as a metal plate. They've got that little bit of armour, but they haven't got much health. Cost wise though, they're also very cheap per square, in the level of wood. So they are another very good choice for the main balloon segment. And then truss blocks. Now they're an obvious very good lightweight. Cost is relatively low, at 2, so that's a little bit more expensive than wood, but that lightweight, weight of 1, that's very good. Lighter again, weight of 4, weight of 1. The problem is with them, they're good for internal structural integrity. They got good armour, good health, but they don't block the helium. They don't block the passage of the helium, so you still have to put a block on them, which we'll see later, to make them have a contained area for the helium. And my final one, which is, I think in general, for depending on what you're after, is a good idea, is the alloy plate. Lightest 0.5, you know, so it's an eighth of the metal plate, which was already pretty damn low. Material cost 1, so it is the same as wood effectively. Yeah, so that could be used. Or I think it will be an alloy plate and lightweight alloy. Some lightweight alloy will be needed in places where the alloy plates don't have enough angles, because you only really have the flat and the sloped. Now it won't have, the only problem is health. It's got good armour, which will bounce small caliber weapons. Anything big, it will blow a hole. But what we're going to rely on, would have to rely on, is repairs and having lots of gas areas. So basic plan, this is a framework that I would use for building the gas bag in this area. Now you can obviously increase this in size, but I've used this as a template. So for the basic is this section, this first 4 here. So 4, 4, 4, so 5 truss beams, and then we add the blocks onto this. So if we were to add onto here, now with materials such as wood, what you can choose, we choose wood just for the moment, is to use these blocks so that they are actually a angled block, and put it in there like that. So that way, that is actually using half the weight of a full block. So 44, and that's 22. Health is obviously half, but armor is still, well, in this case is low. So you can use, those are my preferred ones, those. You could also use the 4-meter slope. No advantage between the two of them, same weight and armor, but it would be better than, I would use these, because these then become into handy once you get wanting to go inwards. You can then use this block to do a few inwards. If I give you the basic shape I would be looking at is something like this. Whoops, and let's just get that going, and one more in the center, and we'll need to put some blocks here to block that up. Now one other part is, and this is a problem with most of the other ones except panels, is once you put the helium inside, these don't block the helium, and you need to cover them as well. So you've got two choices here. One is replace them with a solid block, something like this. Yep. Something you could do either akin to this. Would give you, let's see, I need to go one more there, and that might just give me enough just to put that in there. So that would give us a basic shape there that would be nicely blocked off. So you would have to replace some of the struts. You'll actually have to replace this one in the center, so it becomes very woodish. The other way you can do it with the plates is you can put your plates in here. We'll just go with what would be a potential block. Now you might think, oh, there's a gap there. No, it's actually not. Actually, on here I tend to do them this way round. There we go, that way around. And from here, it's just giving you an idea of the type of system I would put into place. There we go. And on these blocks here, what I would do is just put some panels on the outside, and that would be enough to block them in, and do the same on the other side. So on the other side I would just block them up. Now it might be that you would have to make these join, you might have to change the one in the middle. So there's a couple of little bits you've got to do with angles and blocking points in between to make sure you seal. At the moment, if I left this, there would be a hole just in there if we just look at this corner. So we'd need to fill that in. But if we wanted this to join to another gas unit, you see these two now would be joined by here, because these are not structural blocks. So you might have to instead put a light alloy. What I would do is replace this actually. Have it structured with light alloy block there, and then a 3-meter truss instead there, and then make that basically the repeated, then repeat that here, and repeat however many times we need. So what do we end up with? Let's go and have a look at the bouncy boxes we have over this side. So this is, as you can see, is a wooden construct. You can see I've had to use some solids in places, but the angles and the gas does not come out of these gaps. And if you ever wonder, if you're building one of these and you want to find where your gap is, so I'm just going to make a gap here. When you have your helium pump, go to F3, go into here. If I turn my UI on, you'll see the red box up the top there, and the top directly top, that shows you any holes you have in your zone. So we've got one there. Let's just test the theory. So if I get a block and I get a truss block, if I just come out of that there and we put that in place there, and oops, let me just get back into F3 mode so I can hover into it, you'll notice there's still a red box because it has not been filled. If I didn't want to do that. Thank God for undo. Undo function. Gotta say, love the fact that that's in the game. I had so many designs I would have destroyed without being able to undo. Okay, we got that there. Let me hang on a second. Let me just. I know what the problem is. I'm still attached to the vehicle over here. Anyway. The theory was still sound. I couldn't demonstrate it properly as I'd like to because reasons, but because it's docked, it's not showing me the properly. Anyway, wood. Next, glass. So you could colour the glass. You could make the glass totally clear, in which case it'd be a bit weird, but you could also just make it the colour you wish to have on the outside of your Zeppelin, but that's working quite nicely. And then we have alloy, so I had to use alloy on most of the outside. On this one here, you can see it's quite happy, lots of angled blocks. I didn't use the 4 beams. I'd actually on this I used solid beams in the center because I like the idea of having the core more resilient, so any damage comes through. Then this one looks a little smaller, but it's because of it's using the plates. It's also jiggling around a hell of a lot, which is a bit annoying. I think if I turn the pump off, it settles down, but these docking stations are not necessarily the best, but it wants to go. You can tell it's wanting to go. And finally the full metal. Now I did find a way to save a little bit more weight by finding an even cheaper square block on the edge to potentially use. So yep, we have got a metal. So first stage, do they float? Oh, my metal, my wooden one is still not. Let me just sort this one out. Okay, sorted it out. Had to take the block on and off again. So basically, you can tell all of the blocks seem to have found a natural limit, which is a little unnatural, but it's obviously a finite limit they have given to helium. You can see this is slightly higher, but it's hardly anything, and the actual height we've got to is about 277 meters. So whatever we do, we're not going to be getting above 277 meters as such with purely a helium drive. Don't know whether this is because of the way they have done gravity, or if they put a hard limit in, or whatever the case may be. Again, would have been nice if it was a little bit more gradual, shall we say, the ability of helium, so that, for instance, make it really lightweight, and it could have gone even higher. The metal one here would have been stuck down, let's say, 150 or something like that. Anyway, can't lament that. It's obviously not something that many people do in the game. So they've never bothered to really model it. But me, I like doing things other people don't. So next is how much weight can one of these hold? And the way I'm going to measure it is I'm going to use metal blocks to simulate guns, armor, anything else you might want to put on. And what we're going to do is put these blocks on here, and after a while it will obviously you'll notice that this side will start going down, which is good. And what I'm going to try and do is stop when it's stabilizing somewhere. So I'm going to keep on adding and stop when it gets to about a height of 250-ish, somewhere in that region, and we'll see how much metal each of these can hold and still keep at 250 meters height. So back in a bit once I've added a load of metal. So after a bit of working out with various bits of ballast, I ended up with lead, because some of these were getting very long bits of metal. And also I noticed the difference between shooting up and going down is very little difference. So these will set up. You can to a degree notice, let me just bring these all back again together, the amount is different. So metal, yeah, 2 layers of lead. Wood, as would expected, slightly less. Glass got a little bit more. Alloy, and then the alloy plates, as you can see, are significantly better than metal in just about all of those cases. And they're just about, let me just make sure that's released. I don't think that's releasing. Is that yep, there we go. That's released. Now, as I say, the difference between going up and not can be simply that didn't take. Let me try that again. So that one's starting to go up. Let's just go in here, take one off, and we do that for each of them just to so they're equally different. Take one lead off. You'll notice that they all start going up. Again, there's and the lead block is the equivalent to about 5 metal, so that's why I ended up using lead. Yeah, they start going up quite nicely, but the key, as expected, the amount of extra material you can take with alloy or alloy plates is significantly more. As I say, just by taking one block off, they've already gained quite considerable height. Speeds are different. The speed of gain of height does depend on weight, but when you're very near that difference between between holding your height and going upwards, as I say, it's one block difference. It took quite a lot of weight to get them to go down from their 270 height, and again I think they're going to go up to just about 270. Be nice if there was a bit more of a graduation there, possibly going a little higher if you were prepared to have a very little extra. Oh, he's hit some sort of limitation. What height is that? Let's bring on the thing. 248. So he's stopped at. So there is a little bit of lack of height, but it seems to get to a bit of a limit. Oh, they all seem to be heading around that area. That's interesting. So there will be a bit of a gain once you're above this height for going a little bit less weight, but generally it seems to be around the 240, 250 mark is the altitude you're looking at as being your maximum. So, okay, this all said, this all done. What is the next stage? We've worked out that those particular blocks are the right size, right height. we've got everything we need in place to make ourselves a Zeppelin. So plan, how big do we want to go? Now I think first of all we go for something like the Z. Naming of Zeppelins was interesting. The Zeppelin company named all their their Zeppelins LZ number, and when they were then taken over later on and bought by the army, they had a Z number, so it would be the Z1. Whatever the LZ was would be then changed to the army, but Z. Then when the Kaiserliche Marine took them over, they just used the L and then number. So interesting little bit on the, if you see Z something, it was military. If it was L something, it was navy, and LZ was civilian, or the Zeppelin company's designation for that particular Zeppelin. In some cases they started off as civilian, then were taken over, they kept the number and just changed the Z or the L. But anyway, a bit more information than you need. So the next stage is how I'm going to build it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the alloy plate one, of course, here. I think that's the best option. So let me just get this here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to release the other ones. It'll be easier to look at. Bear with me. Let's just release all of those ones and call back this one. There we go. Right, let's get rid of this ballast off the bottom. Oops, wrong button. Let's go into build mode on this, not on the main structure. So we'll get rid of that and that one. Yeah, no, it didn't like that. Right, we'll take that off, and I'm gonna release it. Oh no, I will hold it for the moment. I'm going to build it and take it into there. Right, now which side is our main structure? I think it's there to there. Let's see, we're going to want to make sure I pull together the correct side so that they link. You'll see, notice I've used a light block here, and I've used a like alloy block here as well to seal the ends. Then we have a 3 in the center, and then a 4. I think, yeah, we'll go up to this point here. So this is the outside of it, going forwards. Yep, I think that's the way. So what I'm going to do is, do I need to make a prefab on the end here? Yes, I do. So my prefab point is actually going to be 5 long. Although it's actually effectively going to be only, you take up 4 spaces because of this padding here. Let me just check that that's correct. Yes, that's duplicated here. So where are we? We go into middle button, and then we are going to want to prefab mode. Right, and the width, I'm going to go a little bit longer because I think I need to include the blocks on the end, which are actually a item. So I also need to go 611 up, oops, and 5 deep. I need to go down now, make sure I cover the bottom item and the top. Yep, that looks okay to me. So now what I want to do is capture that prefab and save it as what should we call this? This is going to be LZ1 frame. Let's get my caps lock right. LZ1 frame. Now what I should be able to do is, if I take this here, is go forward to the right spot and place another one, and keep on doing that. So just make sure that that is correct. Yep, place it on the end. So as a starting base, I think that'll be alright. Now what I'm going to do is shape the nose, seal up the back and shape it a little bit. Same with the front. Then we'll look at some gondolas and engines and other bits, and we'll see what I end up with, and come back with trying to see if it'll actually work against some of the deep waters guards ships and aircraft. See if it can hold its own to a degree. Let's just see what we got. I've made it quite long. Cost is still actually pretty cheap, 3,700 materials, so it should be okay. We'll see how we go in a little while. After a bit of reworking and testing, this is now the LZ1 Scout. So what I've built is a Scout version of the Zeppelin, with some radar dishes to take over some of the roles of the patrol planes, but it's going to be armed so it can defend itself to a degree. Now, little things I found, the AI side, I found that I've got a circle at distance just when it's in combat, but the maneuver I found that ship was best with allow, hover and pitch controls. Basically the airplane one, it couldn't really work out the pitch and yaw, and was really not looking good. It was better to let the height be dealt with using just minimum heights, and to be honest it's going to stick at the maximum 270 meters all the time. There's very little reason for it to change. Now I did muck around with hover as well, but and the 6-axis, but I've just found that the basic ship maneuver seems to suit this quite well. Yeah, that seemed to work for it. The propellers here are set up to actually help a little bit with the yaw, so they will go right and left a little bit, and to help with the pitch, the helium tanks at the front, for instance, if I can just get them here, have got a little bit of a pitch up, and the ones at the back a bit of a pitch down, just to help stabilize the pitch at the 0 rate. Armament wise, well, just going with what was in a Zeppelin, which was machine guns and a few bombs. I may do a version like that for bombing places. I think I'll do one ready, but I've had to add a little bit more. So we've got some machine guns on the top, and I've used the 30 cals because I think they most probably sort of represent the machine guns that would have been in the proper Zeppelins, and they did used to put some on the top, and also the front gondola. Now these are self-defense ones. Get within about 1200 meters, these will start firing. The main offense is the rear, so we've got a single casement gun, just a simple armor piercing HE round. Doesn't do a great lot of damage, but is enough just to deter ships, and a couple of the 60mm cannons set at a slightly longer range to basically deter some of the ships. But the main weapon is some small missiles which drop out the bottom, and they are torpedoes. Now I wanted to do them again with the 1-ton without any guidance, but I don't know if it's the small missiles, but kept on overcorrecting them, and they were either flying in the air or going underwater. I could not get them to stay on the surface, even with a ballast tank. I tried ballast tanks as well. They're all over the place. Put a sonar in there and they're okay. So these are torpedo sonar equipped, which does help them to hit. And I did actually try a magnetic warhead, which sort of worked, but the one turn was just too powerful, moving them out of the way. But that was another possibility. So this is the main system for taking out ships. So how does it perform? Well, let's just bring something into play. We'll bring the basic Marauder, but also on planes we'll bring a couple of dusters in as well, just to show how that all sort of comes up. Now this is not going to be great against a lot of ships, anything except simple ones. The alloy does seem to stand up to fragments reasonably well, and gets repaired pretty quickly. The guns are quite good at taking out aircraft and aircraft especially, just taking out control points so they become uncontrollable, which is quite good. So especially top guns, I quite like those little 30mm, say they're not 30 cal, but 30mm. These little chain guns, they're quite good at taking out the small flying, like the duster up here. They tend to do a good job eventually once they pick up. Yeah, missiles is always a problem. I went up against a paddle gun, and that just did blow the crap out of this, to be frankly honest. I think it was a paddle gun. So there is some enemies that this is just not going to work at all. So basically they'll circle around, trying to stay at about 1600 meters, which is a good sort of defensive range for it, which is quite good. And you can see the cannon is having a go at the Marauder here, so it should be putting in a few rounds on the Marauder, which is good. Primary will be dropping off some torpedoes at it once it can. I'm not sure if there's some coming already. Can't see if we've got any torpedoes coming in. Not yet. Does have to be a little closer for the torpedoes, and if the speed's a bit too high, but hopefully they should be coming in. I'm not sure if that's from these hits are for the cannons or the torpedoes. Let's go and have a look, see if it is actually dropping any. Yeah, it is dropping some. There we go. Whoops. So yeah, torpedoes will come in and quite happily muck up any aircraft, any ships, taking out basically hopefully the propulsion. It'll whittle them down. Now you get a big cram cannon shot like that one that has just gone out, and it hits, which that didn't, then it will do a lot of damage to this. There's no way I'm going to survive against something like that, but it's fast enough. If I bring up the screen now, it's got a good little 47 meters a second in combat mode, which is reasonable, and that's also gives it enough, and it's unsteady enough, not on altitude, but with that steady turn, that it's not most aircraft are not most ships guns will not be able to target this effectively. So it will just keep on dropping out torpedoes and firing with the guns until the enemy is worn down, keeping at that range, just hopefully not taking too much damage. I'll have another go at another version of this for the campaign, which is more of a more offensive Zeppelin, but this was just a quick little test and go through lighter than airships, what you can do. You can take this a lot further. This just another quick little thing. It's quite cheap, 18k of materials. That's not that expensive. It's reasonably large because of all the space needed for these areas here. Oh, just took a hit there. As you can see, took a hit there. That took a big chunk out. But all this space actually works quite well. The HE doesn't travel that far, and with all of the other gas, what should we call them, areas, it's actually kept its height quite nicely and hasn't gone totally out of control. So it's repairing it. Once that has repaired, you know, that's okay. Being small little plates, it actually repairs relatively quickly, as you can see. So that was actually a good test to show it can survive. It's resilient, but does rely on repairing itself rather than any particular armour, etc. Okay, that's it for now. If you got any ideas or think there's something a little wrong there, but it seems to work. Not going to be good for high level enemies, but going to be good, a bit of fun, I think, for this level of the campaign. Oh, me saying that it's quite dodges around quite nicely, and what happens? He's targeting in on us quite nicely. The little bugger, Mr. Marauder, is getting his own back for all of those times we've used him as a target. He's getting his own back on us. Until next time, leave a comment down below, press that thumbs up, keep playing the game, and have fun.